Welcome back to Rhode Island Wave. It's Tuesday night here at the Cowesett Inn. I'm Peyton Perry, and I'm very excited to be introducing Pat Ford, who runs the Coalition Radio Network. Welcome, Pat. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on. This is great.
Of course. So just to start, tell me a little bit about yourself, your interests, your passions.
My passions are politics
Mm-hmm.
and politics.
Mm-hmm.
Politics. In terms of political focus, human rights. I'm anti-war. I'm a libertarian by background. I hate corporate welfare, and I'm anti-war, and I'm a big believer in civil rights and civil liberties.
All right. Thank you for sharing. Tell me a little bit about your work at Coalition Radio. What does your everyday look like?
Well, every day is pretty chaotic. We're a company. We have 4 of our own productions that run during the week. The Golf Dudes, the best golf show in Rhode Island. Chas Galenda, attorney at law. Tina Peterson, who's a remarkable woman, runs something called RAMP, Real Access Motivates Progress. And a woman named Irina Zuckerman, who is out of I'll call it New York and the world, does our foreign policy work. And then during the day, I travel to just about every event. Buddy Sansa used to have a saying that he would attend the opening of an envelope. That's what I do. I film in its entirety political events around the state so I can give Rhode Islanders an opportunity to make their own decisions, minus the sort of canned soundbite approach that a lot of major news media outlets take.
Wow, nice. So what are some of your favorite topics that you cover?
Well, right now there's this hydra of events going on. Running a little late today because last night at the Commerce Corporation of Rhode Island, despite all evidence to the contrary, they decided to approve reallocating funds and re-engineering the way that the Tidewater landing facility would be built. And I'm a libertarian, so I don't believe that government should be involved whatsoever in private enterprise. I actually believe in true free markets. So the notion that the state of Rhode Island is going to take taxpayer money, put it at risk for a soccer stadium, despite the failure years ago at 38 Studios, and despite overwhelming opposition by Rhode Islanders for the same type of subsidies for the Pawtucket Red Sox, is just astonishing to me. The business plan is highly flawed. Individuals in it are acting politically. For the most part, the board has been split. Let's just say the veterans on the board, who are a sophisticated lot, a lot of investment experience, a lot of let's just say industry experience, a lot of real world experience, brought that to bear in opposing it. Governor McKee has chosen to make some highly politicized appointments, who just simply asked no questions and just gave it the rubber stamp that, quite frankly, Rhode Island can't afford anymore. Mm-hmm. So that's one. Number 2, you've got the elections going on. That blew up last week because of chaos at the Secretary of State's office. A number of candidates had hundreds of petitions thrown out. There's little internal controls at the Secretary of State's office on this. One candidate, when they applied to get their quote-unquote failed signatures back, it's a petition, it's a ballot process. You have to get 1,000 good signatures in the state of Rhode Island. And they had something like 30% of theirs rejected. When they got them back, they had another candidates mixed in there, and they're missing them. So that's chaos. You've got, again, it's Rhode Island. It's a target-rich environment. You've got an ongoing litigation where activists are suing the state of Rhode Island and Governor McKee on masking and mandatory masking. And the depositions for that were taken up. And we, at Coalition Radio Network, we're releasing those from last week. I do a lot of courtroom reporting. And so you've got, and that's just the beginning. I mean, I'm not from around here. It's hard to explain back in the old country, Jersey, where I'm from, how incredibly complex, how chaotic the news here is in this state, and politics. I mean, we don't need a football team, we got politics. And so there's literally every day, there is an unlimited amount of work to be done and serious issues to be reported on. So some days you're just holding up for dear life. Literally.
All right, so to backtrack a bit, because it's very clear you're very, very interested in politics, how long have you been with Coalition Radio?
We started about 10 years ago.
10 years
and it was
ago?
a part-time labor of love. We did one show a week at a variety of locations. WPRO, a local digital news agency, basically rented space and time. And then I'm the genius who, in the short months before the pandemic, decided this would be a great time to look at taking the business full time.
Mm-hmm.
There's real genius there. And so we've been on the air heavily for about 2 years. And
Wow.
it's really, I'm very grateful to Rhode Islanders because it's really starting to earn traction because of the aggressive nature of our reporting.
Mm-hmm.
And,
And what work did you do previously?
I've been in sales all my life.
Oh,
So
nice.
I know how to talk and I know how to ask questions.
Yeah.
And I know how to ask closing questions. I know how to ask very well-defined questions. And I'm finding that local politicians aren't used to that. They're used to a much softer approach. And I have boundary issues. I have none.
Mm-hmm.
Literally none.
Mm-hmm.
There are nights. I love this state. This is an amazing place to live. And the problem is it's been so grotesquely mismanaged. It's so terribly run that a lot of people in the state are suffering badly.
Mm-hmm.
I do prison reform and drug policy reform. I cover that. And when you look at an issue like last night, where the city of Pawtucket, which is, again, great people. I hang out in Pawtucket. I hang out in CF. I love the state. Not just the normal touristy parts.
Mm-hmm.
I love Providence. I love the south side of Providence. I love the restaurants on the south side. I love the restaurants on Broad Street in CF. You know, I love this state, but I see people suffering constantly. And when I see last night the city of Pawtucket is mad, it's a miracle. They managed to come up with $10 million to subsidize a soccer stadium. That's not the priority of government, and people, again, are suffering. You know, there's an amazing organization in Pawtucket called the Elisha Project, which, quite frankly, I'm convinced if it weren't for them and a handful of others, during the pandemic, people would have, I'm not going to say they're going to starve to death. This is Rhode Island. It's the United States. But there are serious food issues and malnutrition issues in this state. And if it wasn't for them, but Pawtucket's got $10 million to spend on a stadium, that's nuts. And that's what fuels me. Just that sort of outrage for those type of situations.
Yeah, and you said after the pandemic is a great time to start your full-time business. Would you say that your audience is targeted at any specific age group? Is there recommended for adolescents like myself to get involved, start?
No, listen, political activism can happen in a number of different ways.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you if you're unhappy about situations, I believe that everyone's got superpowers. It's just a question of sometimes it takes a little longer than others, but to find how our superpowers are, where they are, how they can be used. And for some people, like a young person like yourself, getting involved in the media and carrying that passion for what's right and what's wrong, and the impact that you can have as a young person getting into the media is profound.
Mm-hmm.
You know, imagine this. As you migrate into, well, first of all, you're in a great spot to begin with because community independent media, there's an astonishing amount of freedom there. There's an astonishing amount of local reach. People are hungry for real content that affects them. So you're already in a hotbed. So then it's just a question of how do you channel that skill that you've got and how do you channel the opportunities you're given to not just be someone who rehashes the obvious, but puts themselves in a position where they can enact fundamental change by simply moving past the talking points and the gatekeepers of government and the flacks and the PR people, finding out what the real story is and delivering that to people.
Mm-hmm.
There's immense power in that, and I applaud you for taking that kind of career direction.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So what's the best way for someone to listen to your talk shows where you report on all these issues going on in the state of Rhode Island?
We're a creature of social media like everybody else. Facebook.com/The Coalition Radio. As we like to say on the mighty Twitter at Coalition_radio. Our website is CoalitionRadioNetwork.com. And, there's a lot of, boomer here, right? I'm a keyboard guy, so a lot of our stuff goes direct to Facebook. We realize Instagram's got some skills, but, if you're in the middle of a city street at 1 a.m. and you're fumbling with your phone to upload a story. Makes me, again, boomer. So Facebook and the website, uh, there are days where we'll do half a dozen live shots from different locations. So it's a function of what government events have been sponsored. And I want to say there's a lot of people and a lot of the media will go to a government sponsored event, press conference, for example, and assume that, well, that's the story. If I see someone out on the street who's a political leader or a self-appointed leader or a business leader, you're open game.
Mhm.
Camera's always with me. The tripod's always with me.
Oh,
And if
wow.
I'm going to ask you about things that I want to ask you about. No one dictates to me what I decide the story I want to cover is, even if it's at an event completely unrelated.
Mhm. Do you find a lot of stories that way by running
absolutely.
across?
Absolutely. It's a case in point. We've got, in particular, the case of Jack Reed, slightly less so Sheldon Whitehouse, but Jack Reed is one of the most powerful men on the planet.
Mhm.
He's the head of the Sergeant Armed Services Committee. When it comes to military, short of the president and the Secretary of State, he's the guy. He's the man. So the very first question I ever asked Jack Reed was at an event. It was one of these big check events, big fake check they're
Mhm.
handing out. Saw him there. It was the day or the day after the assassination of the Haitian president. There's one of the most powerful men on the planet standing right there.
Mhm.
I'm here, camera running. I asked him if the United States had any complicity whatsoever in the assassination of the Haitian president.
Yeah.
Not exactly on target, on topic, but that's what I wanted to ask.
Yeah.
And he didn't seem overly excited by the question. And then a month later, when it was divulged that, in fact, two of the assassins had been trained at, I believe, Fort Benning in Georgia, I asked him if the United States government is still in the business of training future assassins. And he liked that question even less.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But aren't those important questions?
Yes.
So ask him.
Yeah.
Well, the media sets its own timetable. The media sets its own plate. Government should not dictate to the media at any one point in time what they feel is appropriate. The whole point of it is to pin them down for answers and questions, particularly when you're surrounded by the abject failure that is, in fact, Rhode Island government.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I imagine there's probably not a lot out there like you doing this that probably helped your business go along too. You have your own little.
It's funny. In the very beginning, I kind of looked around to what other folks in the media were doing. There's some enormously talented people in the state. There's some people who do great work. Steve Alquist, for example, is an inspiration. He and I come from vastly different political backgrounds, but I have nothing but respect. And that makes some of my friends who are right of center crazy, but he is a highly skilled, diligent reporter who takes the issues he covers very, very personally and attacks them with a ferocity that is perhaps not as outwardly aggressive as I am, his own unique style, but it's done very, very well. So you find out very quickly. You just do your own thing and succeed or fail based on the merits of that.
Mm-hmm. Do you remember the exact moment where you decided that you wanted to go ahead with this and really launch this radio show?
Yeah, I think it was 2013. And we've migrated from radio to now it's a completely video product. We call ourselves radio because, I love radio.
Yeah.
But absolutely, I was given an opportunity. A guy named Tony Jones here in Rhode Island is sort of a legend in local indie media. And he invited me on his show. And he opened it up, and at that time I was operating under an assumed name. My old name in social media when I started was P.O. Taxpayer, for Pissed Off Taxpayer. And the entire show, he kept a straight face and called me P.O. And he asked me a question, and as you can tell, not few words, and about 20 minutes later, I came up for air. And they're like this, looking at me. And we ended up doing stuff together for several years. He's doing a lot of different things now. Again, another personal inspiration. Great guy who cares very deeply and loves the state. And you'll see that passion in a lot of the independent guys. We love Rhode Island. I'm not a native. We just love Rhode Island.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a beautiful state. It's a great state. Are there any closing remarks or any additional things you want to share before we conclude?
No, Our tagline is our outrage porn free, civilly disobedient media. And what I mean by outrage porn is I'm not interested in emotional issues that are hot for a few weeks and distract people from what's important in the state. And what's important in the state is taking the natural beauty that we've got, the incredible physical location that we have, the skills of literally about 1 million wonderful people, the quirkiness that is Rhode Island, the near cult tribal state that we're in, and finding ways to make it great and to rise us above this sort of self-inflicted gunshot wounds that are quite frankly, our corrupt, incompetent government leads us to. We're better than the people who lead us. And mine, and I think a number of people's goals, is to just bring us above that. And so that everybody can share in what a wonderful place this is.
Very well said. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to
thanks
come
for
and
having me.
chat with me today. It was lovely meeting
Great to meet you. Yeah, good luck in your endeavors. It sounds very exciting, and I think you're going to be great.